Did you know? The first Elder Dragons were from Legends. Printed in 1994, these 5 legendary dragons were the first tricolor cards printed, and as you can see, their colors match the 5 shards from Alara. They were printed as a cycle, one last time in Chronicles. It would take 10 years for Nicobolus to be reprinted again in Time Spiral, then another reprint with new art in From the Vault Dragons. Although we haven't seen any more reprints for the other 4 Elder Dragons, they aren't on the reserve list and can be reprinted again in a future set. During Magic's early days, Elder Dragons were regarded as being just as powerful as Planeswalkers. Of course, this isn't 100% confirmed, thanks to Magic's pre-revisionist stories. For the uninitiated, the pre-revisionist era occurred before 1996. This was when a lot of Magic stories were told in novels, comic books, and short stories from The Duelist magazine. The writers for these stories had more creative freedom, but unfortunately the continuity wasn't consistent with the others, so there needed to be a revision. The revisionist period was led by Peter Ventners, one of Magic's most prolific artists, and he corrected a lot of the inconsistencies. For Magic 2019, more revisions to the original Elder Dragons were made. One such change was Ugin the Spirit Dragon's origin. For 2 decades, Dominaria's surviving Elder Dragons from the ancient Dragon Wars were the 5 printed in Legends. When Ugin was introduced to the game's lore, all we knew was the Spirit Dragon was a planeswalker as old as Nicobolus. Many players assumed he was born on Tarkir, since it hinted that Tarkir is Ugin's homeworld. But there was no official confirmation of where or how Ugin was born. Today, we know Ugin and Nicobolus were twins spawned by the Dragon on Dominaria. Before we cover the backstories on the original 5 Elder Dragons, we're going to first go over what it means to be an Elder Dragon. In the pre-revisionist era, many players assumed Elder Dragons to be a specific race. Even though that may still be true, Elder Dragon is now known as a title given to a dragon who has lived longer than most and leads a brood. Of course, not all dragons have been given this title on its card text. One such dragon is Niv-Mizzet from the plane of Ravnica. As the founder and leader of the Izzet Guild, Niv-Mizzet is over 15,000 years old. Yet, his 2 versions printed in Ravnica and Return to Ravnica do not have Elder on its card type. We don't know why Elder was excluded, but we think it's because Magic never revamped the Elder subtype until 2015, when Dragons of Tarkir released. Since Dragons of Tarkir would be a dragon set, Magic decided there needed to be a hierarchy of dragons. Originally, Tarkir's dragons were extinct. Nicobolus had slayed his brother Ugin, but that changed when the planeswalker Sarkhan Vol traveled back in time to the battle between the 2 brothers. Sarkhan altered the plane's timeline when he saved Ugin. With the plane's progenitor of dragons alive again, the Khans were overtaken by dragons. The leader of each dragon brood became known as Elder Dragons. These 5 Elder Dragons were Atarka, Dramoka, Kulagan, Ojutai, and Sulamgar. All 5 were very popular and each one did see play in competitive formats for a time. Of course, some were played more than others like Ojutai, Atarka, and Sulamgar. Today all 5 see play, but mostly in Commander. Speaking of Commander, that format was originally called Elder Dragon Highlander. It was called Elder Dragon Highlander because you had to select one of the 5 Elder Dragons from Legends as your general. As for Highlander in its name, well, that came from a movie in the 80s that had the slogan, "There can be only one." This referred to how a deck can only have a single copy of a unique card other than basic land. The first Elder Dragon we'll cover is Palladium Ores, the sister of Nicobolus, Arcady Sabath, Chromium, and the cousin to Vivictus Asmati. Much is not known about this ancient creature. However, in the Elder Dragons comics, it is hinted that she may still be alive. According to its history, Palladium Ores was put to sleep by Chromium and buried in an area on Dominaria called Moore's Ridge. She awoke from her slumber thanks to Vivictus, but then she was put back to sleep again by Chromium. As for Vivictus Asmati, he was transformed into a dragon whelp by the planeswalker Merlin. He later found a human to help him dig up Palladium Ores so that his cousin could transform him back to his Elder Dragon form. When Palladium Ores awoke, she did help Vivictus retrieve his true form, but began her conquest to annihilate the humans that attacked her decades ago. Chromium convinced Vivictus to help him put his sister back to sleep. In the process, it is believed Palladium Ores may have killed Vivictus before falling back to sleep by Chromium's spell. As for Chromium Ruel, his story is perhaps the second longest after Nicobolus. In fact, his story was told the most during the pre-revisionist period, while Nicobolus was mostly left in the dark. Besides his involvement with Palladium Ores and Vivictus Asmati, Chromium had a confrontation with the legendary Dakan Blackblade. During this time, he and his mate Piru were servants of a very powerful planeswalker named Gaedrone Diada. Under Gaedrone's control, the planeswalker summoned the two Elder Dragons to battle Dakan. During their combat, Dakan had reached the power of a planeswalker and teleported Chromium to an unknown location. But Piru was stabbed and killed by Dakan using his legendary Black Blade. Chromium's story continues, but before we go further into that, there's a little rumor revolving around Piru. Many players during that time believed Piru was an Elder Dragon, as she was Chromium's life partner. It also seemed like she represented colorless mana and would champion the sixth color. Unfortunately, no Piru card was ever printed, and all this was during the pre-revisionist era. So again, none of this is 100% confirmed, but maybe one day it will be. Back to Chromium. It is believed the events involving Chromium's sister Palladium Ores occurred after Gaedrone and Dakan. During this time, Chromium transformed into a human to keep watch on his sister's slumber at Moore's Ridge. As a human, he fell in love with a human spellcaster named Ad Amra. But when his true identity was discovered, he broke up with his lover, as she was a mortal human and he an immortal dragon. After Palladium Ores was put back to sleep, Chromium pledged allegiance to the planeswalker Merlin. When the Shard of the 12 Worlds closed, Chromium, along with several other planeswalkers, were caught inside it. Trapped, the planeswalkers plotted a way to escape. Their plan involved killing one of their kind to provide enough energy to escape. However, no planeswalker died. Instead, it was Chromium who perished, and his death was enough power to allow them to escape. As for Arcades Sabaoth, his fate was revealed during the time Chromium was trapped inside the Shard. As Chromium was being introduced to the other planeswalkers, Chromium saw Leshrac, who had summoned Arcades Sabaoth in a duel with Christina of the Woods 100 years prior. Christina killed Arcades, but Chromium blamed his brother's death on Leshrac. Like we mentioned before, Nicobolus was left out of the majority of stories of the pre-revisionist era, but that changed when Time Spiral Block was released in 2006. As the only known survivor of the original 5 Elder Dragons and a Planeswalker, Nicobolus is one of the oldest and most powerful beings in the multiverse. His only defeat came at the hands of Tetsuo Umezawa on Dominaria. However, Nicobolus re-emerged when the Mending occurred. From there, he plotted to gain more power on Alara, schemed the release of Eldrazi on Zendikar, defeated the Gatewatch on Amonkhet, and now has some devious plans for Ravnica. Elsewhere on Dominaria, Liliana and Gideon slayed the Elder Demon Belzenlok with the Black Blade, the weapon that killed Piru. Gideon carries it with him when he planeswalks to meet Jace on Ravnica. Well, that's it for now on Elder Dragons. This has been DJ from the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel. You can find my Commander deck techs on YouTube and follow me on Twitter at Jumbo Commander. If you want to learn more about these epic characters from Magic's lore, check out the description, because we've produced tons of other videos like a recap on Dominaria's history and a Did You Know Magic episode on Nicol Bolas. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you all again.